There's this movie called The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's got Jim Caviezel as the star. Jim Caviezel played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ and is apparently really, really close with Mel Gibson. And he's a complete QAnoner. Like, to the core. He believes in the QAnon ideals. He believes in the adrenochrome and drinking children's blood, the whole 9 yards, for real. Listen to what he had to say here. This is actually newer than the other one that I have. This is from mid-June 2023. This is leading up to the release. Yeah, leading up to the release of his movie, Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom released on July 4th, of course, Independence Day 2023. I believe it was filmed all the way back in 2018, but they didn't really have a market for it, from my understanding. I've said this 1,000 times. I'm going to say it again. Fact check everything that I say. I could be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure this was filmed in 2018, and they finally decided to pull it off the shelf and finish it, basically. Do the editing and clean it up and everything. And in between 2018 and now, Jim Caviezel has turned himself into a figure within the QAnon movement, like a popular figure within QAnon. So anyways, listen to what Caviezel had to say here. Check this out. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video.
But it was worth mentioning when I talked about adrenochrome. And I talked about that in the organ harvesting, which I didn't go into. And there's over 2 million in that one, and another 2 million in another one.
Is he saying that there are like 4 million people involved in organ harvesting and like adrenochrome and stuff? Adrenochrome's fake, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but QAnon claims that adrenochrome is a drug that is like the most desired by the elites of the world or whatever. Just completely made up. It's fake. It's not real. There is a substance called adrenochrome, and it is oxidized adrenaline. So when adrenaline pumps through your body, you jump out of an airplane and you pull the parachute, you got adrenaline pumping through. When you start to calm down again, your body basically attaches oxygen molecules to the adrenaline to make it inert, basically, to remove its effects on you so that you stop feeling that, blood pumping, that crazy adrenaline feeling that you're feeling. That's adrenochrome. When oxygen attaches to the adrenaline molecule, that is adrenochrome. It is inert adrenaline that your body has already processed out. And the claim is from QAnoners, of course, is that you have to harvest adrenochrome from living children who are, you got to get their adrenaline pumping, and then you pull the adrenochrome out of their blood or whatever, and it's like this drug that you take. It's not. It's a super simple substance to get your hands on. It's not hard. It's not unethical in any way. If you want adrenaline, which is what I assume they're trying to get, is the high from adrenaline, go running. You get a runner's high from at least partially adrenaline. It's from endorphins releasing, really. But running will actually get you high if you do it enough. If you get into a habit of doing it every single day, you get a runner's high is what it's called. Go skydiving. You want adrenaline. Hell, get an EpiPen and stick it in your leg if you really want adrenaline. Seriously. Adrenochrome, if you take it, all you have to do is, take blood from somebody who has had adrenaline pumping through their body recently. It doesn't have to be taken from children. It doesn't have to be taken unethically. It's not like you gotta, crack their head open and whatever they believe about it. You just, you donate blood and it has adrenochrome in it, and they can isolate the adrenochrome and run tests on it. And scientists have used adrenochrome for various different types of scientific testing and stuff. If you take it, if you eat it or drink the powder or whatever that is adrenochrome, it just gives you a mild headache at best. That's what adrenochrome does. It is a fake, made-up drug from a movie called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's pretend. But I feel like we've established that people like Jim Caviezel, QAnoners, can't manage to draw a line between fantasy and reality. They can't seem to figure this whole thing out. They don't know how to connect with it. They don't know how to separate the two things. So he's telling us that there are like, what, 4 million adrenochrome victims in their world. When you harvest adrenochrome from somebody, they die. That's simply made up.
It's on a world level, and all the biolabs that Senator Rubio talked about with the ambassador to Ukraine. I believe it's
just all of this is made up nonsense. There are no biolabs in Ukraine. That is Russian disinformation that was fed into the QAnon pipeline. I mean, the month that Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, he did what was called the fire hose method, the fire hose propaganda technique. And the idea is, think about it like this. You're on Twitter and you're posting a bunch of different videos. Just take like my Twitter account. I post videos, not anymore, but I used to post videos of Jim Caviezel saying crazy stuff, or Mel Gibson saying something crazy, or Steven Anderson, or whoever. The people I cover, Hank Kunneman and Flashpoint Gang and all those people. I used to release videos of them on Twitter every so often, and I would, see some of them do really well, some of them not do so well. I got one video with Lauren Boebert that got something like 500,000 views. I got one video that got I got one video on Twitter that I think it got 10 million or 20 million views. I don't remember, but it was footage of Patriot Front training for war. Anyways, the idea is on Twitter, you just put out a variety of different things because you don't know what's going to be popular. You don't know what's going to rise to the top, what people are going to want to hear about. So you just put out a bunch of stuff all at once and just see what happens. See which thing is the most popular with people. That is, in essence, the fire hose propaganda technique. And it was heavily implemented by Vladimir Putin in 2014 when he first invaded Ukraine. Yeah, you may not remember this if you weren't politically engaged at the time. Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014. So back in 2022, I think January 2022, Putin invaded Ukraine. And immediately after that, he activated his propaganda network. And you can see evidence of it. Plain as day. So he was using the fire hose propaganda technique. He was throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks, basically, through every media outlet he could. He used QAnon to spread the conspiracy theory that there were biolabs, and the one that they loved the most, which is child trafficking dens. Russia was going into Ukraine to find child trafficking dens. 1 month after Putin invaded Russia, the entire world is turned against Putin, right? He has basically zero support, Putin does, for this war. Almost none. And QAnoner Delora O'Brien and other QAnoners come out of the woodwork with some really interesting and oddly specific conspiracy theories.
I'm not on Putin's side. I'm not on Zelensky's side. I'm not on Trump's side. I'm on God's side.
Now, remember, this is immediately after the Ukraine war started, after Putin sent his troops in. This is early March 2022, so it's like a month, maybe a month and a half, like 6 weeks after the war started, after he actually sent the troops in.
God's side is the side of truth. It just so happens that right now, our President Trump is on the side of God. Also, believe it or not, so is Putin.
This was an absolutely bizarre thing to hear from somebody at this moment in time when Putin had such little support worldwide. I think the UN voted, there's a resolution in the UN, should they withdraw from Ukraine or something like, I don't remember what it was. Around this time, this vote took place, and there were only 6 countries who did not vote to withdraw from Ukraine. Here we go. Countries which voted against the resolution back in February of 2022, I believe. Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, Mali, Nicaragua, Russia, and Syria. Those were the 6 countries or so that voted for basically Russia to continue the Ukraine war. And China abstained from voting, I believe. And every other country that was part of the UN voted against it. And bizarrely, here we have QAnoners. 180-something countries come out and condemn what Putin is doing. And QAnon is coming out of the woodwork supporting it? What?
Right before I came on here, this is what was sent to me.
Again, 6 weeks after the Ukraine war started, early March 2022.
A Russian soldier. I even have his name, and I can't give it. I'm sorry. I can't. Just research it. I'm sure it'll start coming out.
It was fake. It never came out. Putin was feeding disinformation into his QAnon disinformation network.
Searching for bioweapons. There was him and a few of his the other soldiers.
Okay, so bioweapons, that's one of the fire hose propaganda pieces that Putin was throwing at the wall, trying to see which sticks, right? Bioweapons. He also said Nazis. They were fighting Nazis. There were a bunch of Nazis all over Ukraine. Remember all that? So Nazis, bioweapons.
Searching for bioweapons in central Ukraine, stumbled upon a child trafficking den.
And that one, my friends, is what got QAnon whipped into a blood frenzy. That's all it takes. You tell QAnon that there are children involved and they will lose their minds and believe it without question. No matter how outlandish or ridiculous or nonsensical it is. They'll believe it without question because it has the word child in it. She gets real specific. Apparently, whoever sent her this supposed dump of information or whatever, or just this whistleblower, this claimant or whatever, got really specific with what they claimed to have seen in Ukraine.
Dimly lit, filthy bunker holding approximately 100 young boys and girls.
Just made up, dude. It's just ridiculous. So that's just one example of the fire hose of falsehood method. It's a propaganda technique that may have its roots in Putin in 2014. He may have invented it in 2014, but just like on Twitter, when I send out, 100 videos with all of different subjects, I want to see which subject hits the best, which one is most interesting to an audience. Putin throws out as many propaganda techniques as he can to see which ones stick the best, which ones are the most likely to grab the hearts of everybody, of the people listening, the most likely to convince the listening audience, which should be everybody, because these conspiracies are going out on every single media outlet that he can get them out on. QAnon and even mainstream outlets, social media bot networks, pushing this stuff out, anything he can use to push these conspiracies, as many as he can possibly push. And I guess Jim Caviezel here picked up on the bio lab conspiracy. That was one of the fire hose conspiracies that Putin pushed out at the time.
The biolabs that Senator Rubio talked about with the ambassador to Ukraine, I believe it's Victoria Nuland, and she gave her testimony about the biolabs. Oh, come on, guys. Look, it's right there in front of you,
I guess this guy bought it. I just explained how the fire hose of falsehoods propaganda technique works. You should be able to identify it like all over the place now. Like every time you look at what Trump is doing, you'll see it. He throws out every conspiracy theory under the sun when he knows that the media is zeroed in on him. Whatever he can do to capture people's attention and spread as much falsehood as humanly possible gives him the opportunity to see which things are the most popular with his believers. So anyways, yeah, Jim Caviezel, QAnoner, obviously part of a disinformation network, probably unwittingly, doesn't even realize, released his movie Sound of Freedom about saving children. It's supposed to be based on a true story. Of course, based on a true story is very loose. It's kind of, it's just based on like a guy who worked for Homeland Security, I think, and when he left Homeland Security, he started a network to try to stop human trafficking, basically. That's the extent of the similarity between the two movies. Now, Jim Caviezel plays the main character, apparently, where he works for Homeland Security or something, and I don't know the plot exactly. I think they tell him that he can't save every Honduran kid that's in trouble, and he's like, well, heck it, I'm gonna do it anyway, and he quits, and he goes down there like he's Liam Neeson in Taken, and he goes down there and he saves these kids from these child trafficking dens. You remember? All this stuff coming from QAnon is largely inspired by Russian disinformation. I believe that QAnon is a Russian disinformation network. It exists solely for that purpose and is used for that purpose too. I don't know if it was created for that originally, probably not. But eventually people saw the value in it in Russia and started to spread conspiracies through it very easily. They'll buy anything. QAnon will. If they will buy the idea that JFK Jr., who died in 1994, is going to secretly return, and they believe it so fervently, this is real, this video I'm showing you, they believe it so fervently they will show up at the grassy knoll and wait for him to appear. For real. These are QAnoners waiting for a dude that died in 94 to show up to run as Trump's vice president. You can see QAnon shirts like all over the crowd. That's why these people are here, to wait for JFK Jr. to show up. If you can convince people of this, you can convince them of anything. And Putin knows that and uses that to his advantage. Jim Caviezel fell for it. So anyways, Jim Caviezel was in this movie, Sound of Freedom, and it was about him going to the Honduras to save a bunch of children that were being trafficked or whatever. It's like a QAnon dream movie. When in reality, the QAnon figures of child trafficking or human trafficking are way overblown. They claim 400,000 kids per year go missing. And that's like 4 million kids over the course of 10 years. So where are these 4 million children? In reality, the number is not 4 million over 10 years. It's not even 400,000 in 1 year. That's a fabricated number. That number that QAnon cites as how many children are taken each year, the entire basis for this movie, Sound of Freedom, that number, 400,000, was the number of reported incidents to police of children that had gone missing. And upon further investigation, all you had to do was call around and find out from these police stations exactly what happened. Most of them were recovered. Many cases were, little Timmy is at the mall with mom, and mom is looking at earrings at Claire's, and little Timmy sees that there's a Baskin Robbins across the hall there, so he walks over there to check out the ice cream and, just kind of tries to get behind the little thing and grab some ice cream without anybody seeing. And mom turns around and little Timmy's gone, doesn't know where he went, calls the police. The police show up. They write a report. They look around and, oh, there's little Timmy. We found him. He was in the vanilla ice cream all along. That's a lot of where the reports were from. The reports don't account for kids that were recovered. And actually, most of the reports, somewhere close to 70 to 80%, were teenage runaways, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that were mistreated and ran, left home, and didn't want anything to do with their parents anymore. Their parents filed a report, or CPS filed a report because CPS was involved and wanted to know where the kid was. That's basically what that 400,000 figure is. In reality, the number of children that are actually taken for human trafficking in the United States is nearly impossible to know, but nowhere near 400,000. Not even close. The people that are taken for human trafficking are mostly going to be younger girls, probably 18 to 30, and they're going to be in an Andrew Tate type of situation where they're being forced to do OnlyFans stuff. Now, children, Jeffrey Epstein had his weird little thing going on, but that did not account for 400,000 children per year. That's insane. And QAnon latched on to this figure, and that's how they blew up. That's how they got famous. That's how QAnon really got hold of the public consciousness. The hashtag Save the Children thing that they did. The campaign that they did, hashtag Save the Children, it got a lot of attention. And, they built this movie, Sound of Freedom, off of that momentum. Jim Caviezel lives in a fantasy land where he's like this hero that's trying to save children that are not in danger in the first place, that he has no idea how to solve the problem anyways. And honestly, human trafficking, people who work on human trafficking, people that work on stopping it, like the FBI and the CIA and other three-letter groups, have told QAnoners to lay off, walk away, stop it, because you're sending in all of these false reports and it's clogging up our systems and it's getting everything all mixed up and confused, and you're not helping anything, you're only hurting. None of the facts matter to Jim Caviezel because he's a QAnoner, because he believes that kids are being captured for their adrenochrome. And that's what The Sound of Freedom, the movie, was really all about. Now, is it loosely based on a real guy that did a real thing? Yeah. There's a real guy that really did retire from his job as a Homeland Security something or other, I think. And he started a network to try to reduce human trafficking. That's fantastic. I'm so glad that we have people out there that do that kind of thing. The movie is so deeply unrealistic and such a shout out to QAnon. I can't possibly imagine anybody would even want to go see it. And aside from all that, there are tons and tons and tons of TikToks of people coming out and saying, we went to see Sound of Freedom and they were sabotaging the movie. They left the lights on the whole time. It was freezing cold, or it was burning hot, or they're just making up these stories of how the theater was like an inhumane location because of that movie, because that movie was playing. If the theater didn't want to host the movie, they don't have to. That is the theater's choice. Theaters choose to host a movie because they think it might bring eyeballs in and they have an extra theater open, so why not? You think that, they're sabotaging their own sales, really? It's just conspiracy brain all the way down. And again, that's where you get people showing up at the grassy knoll waiting for JFK Jr., okay? The same people. So Jim Caviezel, in promoting his movie Sound of Freedom, mentioned adrenochrome and biolabs in Ukraine in the first 37 seconds of this clip.
And so I think Gullible's travels are over for most Americans now. And that's what is making them quake in their boots. And
who is them? Are they in the room with us right now, Jim? It's the deep state, of course, which is ultimately code for Jews. It all eventually routes back to Jews somehow, every time. Just wait. I don't know if you heard this, but RFK Jr. recently said, there's a video that leaked of him at a dinner where he told people at this dinner that he believed that COVID-19 was ethnically targeted, that Chinese people and Ashkenazi Jews are less affected by COVID-19 than most other people, most other ethnicities. Complete nonsense, all of it. It's all made up, every last bit. But it doesn't matter if it's made up. They're going to make the claim anyways, and people are going to believe it.
COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Gullible suckers will buy anything that Jim Caviezel and RFK Jr. have to sell, and Donald Trump, especially Donald Trump.
One of the biggest things is that it is high probable, would say,
highly probably says, okay,
that none of these people will ever be able to walk down the street again. It's coming, and I'm telling you, it's coming. And
the storm, presumably, the storm is coming. People are going to face accountability. These evildoers. Yep.
They know it's coming, and the world is going to have a rude awakening.
The deep state, of course, the elites, the George Soroses and the whatever, I don't know, whoever they think is pulling strings like puppet masters. George Soros, of course, being Jewish. I told you, it always routes back to the Jews with these people. Always. Whether it's a direct route or an indirect route, it somehow always routes back to a Jew.
Awakening, and this will be worse than anything that anybody's ever seen. And so, but I'm okay.
But what's worse specifically? Are you talking about something on par or greater than kind of the Nuremberg trials, or?
It's greater than all of that because it's killing every child, every baby from every religion.
Like people, everybody's going to want retribution.
From all of the countries in the world.
Yeah.
So I guess he's saying that the storm, quote unquote, this big QAnon event where they're saved from all the evildoers, is going to include Nuremberg trials, and the trials are going to be run against every world leader in history, apparently, except for Donald Trump.
Our children, the most innocent. And why do they do this? Because it is the greatest offense to God. These children are the most innocent and most like God. And to the evil one, he loves this because it wounds God greatly.
Get help, bro. For real. Get help. This guy, I don't know how he still gets work in Hollywood. How the hell is he still, like, acting in films? Oh my God, dude. This guy has problems.
But it was worth mentioning when I talked about adrenochrome.
Jesus Christ. Seriously. Let me know what you think about this guy in the comments and about the movie, The Sound of Freedom. It sounds like complete garbage to me. I'm sorry, man. Maybe it's an interesting movie, but the premise is absolutely ridiculous. And it is not based in reality in any way. It's complete fantasy. Complete fantasy. But they have based on a true story there. They take that way too liberally.